Welcome to the Verified Home Pros podcast. Today we are going to be switching things up. Normally we have a contractor interviewing other contractors, but today I'm going to be playing the role of a homeowner asking a very seasoned contractor some advice because it can be overwhelming sometimes to own a home, especially when you have to enter the world of contractors.
So I'll just be a contractor like I am then, right?
You just be you, and I'll just be me.
I like that.
And we'll go through this. We're going to talk about the times that you interact with contractors while owning a home, starting with if you might interact with them when you're buying the home, to whether or not you have to do replacement on a piece of equipment or repairs. We're going to be specifically talking about HVAC because that is your area of expertise.
I do know something about that.
Yeah. How long have you been working in HVAC?
Oh boy, that's a trick question. We covered in an earlier podcast that, I was the best bathroom cleaner of all time, right?
Right.
That ever worked here. So, you're going back to, early teen years, but through high school, whatever, went to college, came here and worked. So I don't even want to say how many years that is, but we're on decades now.
Right.
And then formally managing the business in its entirety, 25 years, we're getting close.
And your family has been in this industry now for almost as long as it's been around?
80 years.
Yeah,
it's gone 80 years right now. Oh, well, okay, I see where you're going.
Yeah,
so
Carrier invented air conditioning.
46, air conditioning was probably invented early 1900s. Willis Carrier did it. I should know that number.
Right.
I'd say early.
We'll throw that number like somewhere.
Yeah, we'll pull that up, right? Okay, very good. Right, we can do that. Yeah, it's been exciting.
Yeah, well, and your dad got into the industry working in sheet metal, correct?
That's right. So all in South St. Louis City was where the business originated, and all the old buildings in South St. Louis City had like cornices with decorative sheet metal.
Yeah.
Cornice, I don't know if that's the word. I'd like to describe what it is for folks, but like a crown molding.
Yeah.
And then, or a sheet metal porch deck. So if you had a little porch off the front, it would generally have sheet metal that would be covering it, not shingles. And so they lasted a long time. You do that in copper, they'd last forever.
Yeah, you see some of those little copper overhangs as like an accent off the side of a house. They're really gorgeous.
Yeah. So all that stuff, and then gutters, of course, and all the things to collect water off buildings. And it was a natural progression when air conditioning became prevalent because you moved there through sheet metal ducts.
Right.
We were in the sheet metal business. My dad, basically, along with my grandfather, but Dad instigated it, we should be in the air conditioning business. I wasn't there for those conversations. I'm guessing they went smooth, or maybe not, I don't know, but we ended up in the business. And so that's early 60s, late 50s-ish, so that long in that business.
And the way you've kind of described it to me, it almost feels like the Wild West, like we're figuring out air conditioning.
Totally.
Your dad was working in sheet metal. Was he having to figure things out for himself or create new routes, or was it kind of an established and he had to learn how to adapt to a new industry?
Wow, that's a great question. I'd say adapt with. So we don't have any particularly like discoveries or inventions. In other words, most of what I've seen that we've done, especially since prior to my leadership here, was pretty much industry standards, following the industry guidance, et cetera. So, yeah, I'd say just following growing with the industry. Not that we weren't leading,
right,
but growing with the industry and utilizing the technology that was available to deploy what really was a new thing, right?
Right.
It wasn't. We had in our pricing sheets, I can't remember. I think they called it add-on air.
Really?
So that'd be houses that didn't have air conditioning, right?
Yeah, because I bought houses. I bought a house once that was built in the 20s, and it didn't have any central air. It had a central heating unit, but no air conditioning, yeah.
That's right, exactly. So furnaces were gravity in a lot of instances, too, and so there was no blower. So if you convert that to a forced air heat, and then you'd have an add-on air component, or people would have converted from an oil-burning or coal-burning furnace, which was gravity, to a forced air furnace, and then you'd have an add-on air. And we still do price books because we don't let our salespeople determine what people pay for the products they receive.
Ooh, don't get into that too much yet.
I'm not getting into anything. Yeah.
No, hang on to that one.
Yeah, but my point is, we have a price book. Of course, there is no add-on air
right.
in our price book anymore. It's air conditioning so prevalent now. We find people are more upset when their air is down than they are when it's heat. And it's even hard for me to grasp that because I think Well, it was only invented 100 and X years ago. Like, how did we
Right.
survive for the millions of years we were here before that without air conditioning? Because you would think it's been around forever, the way that people need it, so to speak, the way they react when it's down.
Yeah, you can't imagine living without it right now. Maybe it's because we're getting warmer summers or more humid summers that with all that corn sweat,
Yeah.
you know.
Don't even know what that is.
I've just learned about corn sweat this year. It was all over the news.
Yeah.
Okay, so your family's been in the business for a while. We've been doing HVAC, sheet metal, and all kinds of things for years. Let's just get into the customer journey and talk about the different aspects that somebody might come into contact with a person like you.
Yeah.
I mean, starting with, for me, the most overwhelming thing was when I was buying a home. All of a sudden, there was all this stuff that I'd had no experience with. I'd lived in homes before, obviously, but it was never my responsibility to maintain it or to replace things as they went out. So we'll go over this a little quicker because we have a whole segment where we talked to a couple great realtors,
Yeah.
where we went over some of this. So I just want to talk a little bit about the times that somebody might interact with you. So there's tight deadlines. Sometimes you're purchasing with a new home or you're working with selling your home, and you're trying to match all this stuff up. But my experience that I brought a contractor in with was when I bought a home. It had already had an inspection, so there was a report from an inspector saying what needed to be done, and I was really nervous about the HVAC system. So I brought a contractor in to just look at it and tell me, like, hey, how, what's my timeline look like? Because I'm trying to judge that, what's my cost in this home going to be over the next few years? Have you been brought in, or do we get brought in on situations like that frequently as like extra consults, or when have you experienced when somebody's a new homeowner bringing in an HVAC contractor specifically?
Yeah. So that's not the most normal client interaction that we have.
Yeah.
But it happens regularly. It's like we're saying, like paths into a relationship with clients. So what I find interesting about when you're brought in for an inspection, or you're brought in after an inspection's taken place to do corrections, sometimes you're not talking to the real stakeholder who is the person who's going to own that home, or this work is getting conglomerated with a bunch of other items that are being addressed. And so it feels like either the stakeholder in many instances, who could be the prior owner, it could be the broker or agent. Hopefully, it's the people who are going to end up in the home at the end, because it's the legacy of that work that they're going to have to live with. But sometimes all of it, like the urgency of it, the value of the interaction, is to get the transaction done on the house.
Right.
And so the owner wants to mitigate their cost, the current owner. The new owner, really, if they were being thoughtful, could likely roll in any improvements they did into their mortgage.
Okay.
I'm not a real estate agent, but I do know how the world works in a lot of ways. And so I would say it would be thoughtful if you could, bridge that into the payment on the house. You could incorporate it into closing, and then get your HVAC, worked out to where it makes it a place you want to stay. And perhaps it's just a home you're only going to be in for a short amount of time. Maybe we'll get to that kind of stuff or not. But that's a question that we ask all of our clients when we're talking about doing any sort of upgrades. And it doesn't mean that, I personally feel like every home should have an amazing HVAC system in it.
Yeah.
But, it costs money. And so people have to balance their economic input against what the benefit is for them. If you're staying in a home for a couple of years, even if you wanted the most amazing HVAC system, that may impact your decision.
Sure.
So if you're buying a home you're going to be in for 10 years, that's not something that should be rolled into a transaction. I don't think we should spend a ton of time on that. Maybe we could elaborate. And I think we did to some extent
we did.
with our real estate broker friend. But wow, sometimes the thought process on it gets steamrolled because the decision process is based on getting a transaction done, or there's three stakeholders,
Right.
and they maybe don't have an equal voice. I would say slow down, think about how long you're going to be in the house, and make a thoughtful decision, because you've got an opportunity to finance it creatively. And the truth is, if you're staying, believe it or not, our happiest customers are the ones who have the most amazing HVAC systems. And
I
so
can imagine that. Yeah.
many times here, how could I didn't even know like the air could feel like this. Like that's a normal kind of
Yeah,
thing
I've,
that
I've
gets
seen
said.
that in reviews. That was one of the first things you told me was a story of getting in somebody's house and they just pulled you aside to be like, I didn't know it could feel like this.
Yeah, because you can't test drive it. It's the worst part of our business is that thing. It's like they're
Right.
taking our word on everything, and they're talking to a contractor. Like, I would say there are contractors you can trust, but I completely understand why a potential client would have anxiety about just trusting your word. Like,
Right.
that's a big reach.
Well, so on that note, a customer, they're not always going to interact with a contractor during the purchase process. They've got an inspection, but there is a big difference between a system failing an inspection and a system being maybe outdated, right? Like it might pass code, but it's a little older and might be wearing out. Is there anything that you could give maybe somebody who's some advice to a new homeowner who's looking
Yeah.
through their dream house? Like you said, both people are incentivized to close there, so like there's an
Yeah,
incentive
they want to get
do
in the
that.
house too, for sure.
But if they're looking at a system, they're only in that home at one time of year. They're only in that home at one time a day, and especially in an area like this, man, we've had 80-degree weather this week and almost 30-degree weather this week. It depends on what you're going to be in. Is there any advice you can give a homeowner or a potential homeowner if they're looking at a house, things that you should maybe look out for or consider when you're looking at the HVAC system yourself?
I think I can give two examples. So, the first one would be let's go down the inspection route. Yeah, if that's what you want to say, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of the benefits of HVAC systems that people maybe don't think about.
Sure.
So, when it comes to an inspection, it's almost like maybe you're processing an insurance claim, and so the stakeholders have different objectives, some different things they want to achieve, and so perhaps the new homeowner, the system is old, but the inspection goes well enough, and there's a small repair that needs to be done. But rather than sink that money into a repair, you would want to parlay that money into a replacement. I'd offer, it might muddy the waters, and I would talk with my broker about it, but would it be a good time to think about going ahead and updating it, even if it's on you, and can you roll it into your mortgage?
Right.
So that's not a bad way to go. And when you can spread, the money is way cheaper on a mortgage than it is either taking a home equity loan, and for sure financing independently, the rates are cheaper. So you've got an option to maybe get something you want if it's something that matters to you. If it's not on your radar,
Okay.
right, then, so now the next thing is, if it's got a heat exchanger issue, an evaporator or a condenser coil issue,
It's like a major
or a
safety
compressor,
issue, yeah.
think change of the system.
Okay.
Like you're there, you want to create a clean slate that you don't have to deal with a legacy issue of a system that maybe it wasn't maintained properly, maybe it wasn't serviced properly, maybe it's just junk, maybe it's fine if you change the compressor, but if the thing is over 7 years old, for sure if it's 10 years old, you're going to put a very expensive component in a thing where there are likely other components that would fail. You don't want to be putting a new air conditioning system in a house 3 or 5 years after you buy a house if you're staying there for
So
a
you're
long
basically
time.
saying like this is a good moment to pause and
Be
think,
thoughtful.
even if it's not something I was considering
Yeah.
now. If it's a decision that's going to have to be made in the near future, it might be better to make that decision now and just pull the trigger because you're getting the financing, or you can kind of maybe plan out how you're going to afford that. Is that what you're kind of getting at?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm being a little cavalier with saying like, oh, you can just finance it. Like it depends on what your equity base in the house. I'm not a real estate agent. Neither am I a broker. Neither am I a mortgage broker.
Or an
right?
appraiser.
So, yeah, or an appraiser. And so all of those things matter.
Right.
But I'm certain if the value of the home would support it and the upgraded HVAC would support it, your lender wants to lend you money. They make money on money they lend you. Like that's the relationship. So be thoughtful is what I would offer, and think long term, especially if you're staying long term. So the other thing that has always been frustrating to me, and this switches off of you got an inspection issue to you're buying a home. Mm-hmm. Like when you're looking at what you can afford, you should think about what the operating cost is of the stuff that's in that house. And the air conditioner is a very large consumer of energy.
Yeah, it's
and the furnace.
frequently the largest.
Almost every time,
Yeah.
right? And so you think about your payments, what your monthly payments are. You might be surprised, especially if you're spreading it over 30 years, that what you pay for a system could be less than what the savings is on the utility cost. And again, there are a lot of things swirling. So I've bought a couple of homes in my lifetime, and it's so exciting. And so you're looking forward to moving in. Well, not the move necessarily, because that's, that can be
I
misery.
enjoyed the move more than I enjoyed the
my
purchase
gosh,
process.
I don't even understand. That makes no sense to me. I will say
yeah.
hire movers. Like
I
that's
like setting up stuff.
That's an underrated service that's provided. Like,
Right, yeah,
when they come in with the blankets and they carry the stuff out on the straps, and you just drink your coffee and kind of
Because you're focused on the decorating and the fun part
exactly.
of it.
And they move the boxes and you ask what room to put it in. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So
Tip them good. Tip them well.
Yeah, that's right, for sure.
They deserve it.
So we're going back to talking about we're adding this other layer of complication, and like, is it the right time to do it? It might not be for everyone, but you're likely buying a house on an income budget. What can I afford in monthly payments?
Yeah.
If you know what the operating cost is of that home, and insulation plays the same, it's the same play. Windows are the same play. Not that you even have to do that then. We could even do it differently. You could say, oh my gosh, this is what my operating cost is, but I plan to upgrade the insulation or the HVAC in the next 24 months. You're going to harvest back those ongoing expenses that are going to reduce your cost of ownership.
Now, when you're talking about that cost of operation, how accurate are those little stickers that you find on your units that tell you the estimated cost of it? Because like some of them might be older, right? If it's an older system in a house, I would imagine that sticker on there is probably not accurate anymore.
Wow. So I haven't done a study, compared. So it would definitely depend on what your current cost of energy is, and that's changed. We're fortunate in St. Louis, Missouri, that our cost of energy is cheap,
right?
Especially compared to East and West Coast.
Yeah, it's one of the best parts of living here is the cost of living.
It literally, I mean, we've been coached by manufacturers to say, okay, you make this investment and you're going to save, you're going to mitigate this future risk of utility prices going up. And we're in the business to service clients, but nothing happens in our world unless we service or sell air conditioners. And so we try to learn how to coach clients and do what's best for them, but capture ideas, right?
Right.
And so that was an idea that kind of got some traction here. Is, oh man, like there was a time even when gas prices climbed some and then they fell.
Right.
And I remember as all this went on, it's like, here it comes, that it's finally happening.
Right.
The prices are going to go up.
It's going to switch.
We're going to get caught up, and all this math is going to work, and it kind of never has. So we've pulled off of that play a bit.
Yeah, because when you're in a low cost of living area, it's less of an advantage because you're not dealing with these enormous costs of gas and electricity.
And I think what I'm trying to say is it still costs money to operate it, but you shouldn't make decisions on efficiency based on like an if-come that utilities are going to go up. Because what I can tell you is no one knows.
Base it off of what you know now.
20 years ago, our manufacturers were saying the scales are tipping. And I mean, we're 20 years later and they didn't. Now, maybe it happens next year. I don't know. But I'm telling you, we were coached that it was going to, and it didn't.
Right.
Like, what's happening on the coast is not necessarily a reflection of what's coming here at this point that we can tell.
So what's their best way to kind of get a gauge on, I mean, maybe just ask the homeowner, like what are your usually utility costs, or you could ask them to show you a utility bill possibly.
If I was buying a home,
if you're buying
I would
a home.
absolutely ask the owners what the utilities cost.
Yeah.
100%. I would want to know what it costs.
That curve too, because it's it's different in July than it is in.
Yeah, you'd want to see a year's worth of bills. If they'd share it, there wouldn't be any reason they wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they're not being truthful about how efficient the system is.
Well, that would be baked. There would be no way to either hide that or,
Yeah.
Does someone want to go through that trouble? I think it's worth asking.
Again, incentivize both people to sell the home. So again, there's I think a level of trust you have between homeowner and seller because you want it to go well. You want it to go through.
As we're riffing, right? So I'm thinking, like, second thoughts on that. The market has been so crazy.
Yeah.
Like the window between you see a house you want and it has 3 contracts on it.
Yeah.
Sometimes is hours. Like no one's going to pull all their utility bills and tell you what it costs to operate the house. I think you could ask. I don't know. I will say this. Like I think about the things like through life you want a thing, and you're thinking about this house that you want, and you on your own or you and a significant other are excited about this thing. I mean, life is short. If you want it, and you can afford it. I'm not just saying just go be willy-nilly. I'm not telling people, well, I'm not saying to be irresponsible.
Yeah.
On the other hand, don't be wishy-washy.
Yeah.
Or you'll miss it. And so we're giving
I've
advice.
missed a lot of house sales, because of that, because I've been
things.
scared to ask or pull the trigger.
It happens when you meet an employee that you just want to have at your company, and then but you're measuring against the market. I mean, I'm getting off base, but not really. It's the same thing. It's a buying moment, right?
Right.
And you want them, and then you don't make an offer, or you're like, we'll do another interview. In the meantime, they're thinking, well, golly gee willikers, now I'm excited. They interview somewhere else and you lose them. Like, oh, I took a job somewhere else.
Right.
Like, oh my God, like we needed that person here.
Yeah,
Like, what did we do? Like, why were we on the fence?
So at some point, you got to make a decision. Okay,
Just,
so
if you're excited about it, do it. But if you can factor in some of these things, even if you bought it, you could ask after the fact and then be thinking, okay, whoa, there's generally going to be time between contract and closing where you could say,
Right.
well, hold on. Should we do something thoughtful about what, especially if the bills were high? Why are they high? Maybe you dig in a little bit. Oh my gosh, there's no insulation in the attic. Well, shucks. The value of it would support doing that now. Put it in on a mortgage.
Oh
and
yeah,
you're
attic
done.
insulation, one of the best ways to gain value back. You actually can gain value back on your house in that way. It's a fairly reasonable investment for a huge payoff.
Yeah, a giant payoff for sure.
Yeah. Well, on that note, so let's imagine we've purchased a home, and let's move on to what's the next time we might interact. Like we've purchased a home, maybe everything was working fine, maybe it wasn't, but either way, now we're into a repair situation. So maybe we've got to repair the old unit in our old home before we can sell it. Maybe we've moved into this home and it's been a few years and it's time to repair. A lot of people come into that situation, and I hear this on the phones all the time because my job is I'm the marketing manager here for everybody in the know. So I listen to a lot of phone calls to understand how well things are going, and you hear people ask about free estimates.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of clear some information here for people, which is what is the difference between a free estimate on a system and a repair diagnostic? Because I think some people see people advertise free estimates and they think like, oh, my system's broke, come out here and check it out for free. That's usually not the case with people, correct?
Not if it needs a repair.
Right.
If you're calling in and you need a repair on your system, we're going to send a highly trained and well compensated, because they deserve nice things too.
Correct.
And they put a lot of effort into their craft. Like very, very rewarding, very proud, and very happy that a part of my life is interacting with these technical people and how much work that they put into their craft. It just blows my mind, really,
Right.
and how much there is to know. So
They're so smart.
it's crazy.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
I
it's
sit in on those
crazy.
meetings and you hear these guys talk. And
Yeah.
it's like that
They'll
scene,
lose me, you know?
you're just seeing all the math equations in the
Literally.
air.
Yep. So my point is, there has to be a fee for them to come out to the house. So in our business, the way we manage our fee base is there's a fee to come out and do a diagnostic. Before we do any repairs, that technician will run through with you what your options are. So if your system's old and you were thinking about replacing it, but you weren't sure, your only out-of-pocket cost is just the diagnostic fee. You're not obligated to spend another penny, and you'll know whatever expense is before anything happens, piece by piece with your approval. And so you could just pull the plug right there and say, well, hold on a second. That's a big repair. I've been thinking about changing this out.
Right.
Let's have a consultant come out and then talk to us, and then we get our free estimate.
Right, and that's the free estimate.
That's correct. So now a consultant's going to come out and talk to you about your options. Not on the repair. You've already received that service from your technician. But all these things we're talking about, the indoor air quality, the cost of ownership, the options that there are, where you can weigh the decision. And then if you want, you can bring that technician back and make the repair. Otherwise, change the system out, or in theory, do nothing. I mean, your obligations and our obligations are met. Like, information's been shared. We want to be your service provider, but in essence, it's a consultative relationship we're looking for, and so we try to compartmentalize it that way.
Yeah, and that's good. And that's great, because that's usually what you get in. Because sometimes, I've been in that situation before where you want somebody to come out for something. Maybe it's a surprise repair. And it's a tough pill to swallow to be like, I got to pay you just to look at it. I don't even know if I want to fix it yet. Yeah. But when you think about it in that way, like, there is a highly skilled, practically genius guy coming out to your home to diagnose a problem just like a doctor would with your own body. In my thought, after thinking through it that way, is like, I hope it costs a little bit of money. I would question if it doesn't.
I can give you an example.
Go ahead.
You forgot to change a battery in your thermostat, right?
Yeah, mine's giving me that notice now.
Oh, I can't. I haven't been on the receiving end of that. But we send a technician out. You've got a diagnostic charge. There's a charge to put a battery in a thermostat. Like, we don't love That's
Right.
expensive really any more than the client does. So we've got bills to pay.
Right.
There's a cost to roll that tech, right? So that technician, what I think I'd like to get across to folks is to understand that simple repair, yeah, you just needed to adjust the air pressure in the tires, right? Or we were going to check your blood pressure. But this same person could do brain surgery on
Right.
your, like you've got a brain surgeon out there. It was kind of a waste of resources. What a shame that battery didn't get caught or a setting on something. But there isn't any other way to make ends meet.
Yeah, it's
And
like
so
you're
it's just,
you're
you know,
really hesitant to pay the bill for the colonoscopy because they found nothing. But
Thank
woo,
God you had it. Yeah,
they found nothing.
That's right. Totally. So I tell you, we do try to go through a list of those questions with folks, depending on what they say. Our dispatch team and the folks who answer our phones are trained.
So they might ask questions like, "Hey, did you
will.
check the battery?"
Totally. Yeah,
Good.
just check the battery. Yeah, I mean, try to catch those things. So we don't want to charge for it either.
So maybe then a good question or a good point would be like, if you're on the phone with a technician or with a company who isn't taking that time to check those couple things, maybe get another opinion, call somebody else. Because I would imagine if you call somebody who's just like, "Yeah, we'll be right out there," like,
Yeah, I can't even, honestly, I can't even offer an opinion on it. I mean, I like the way your brain's going and thinking like that. I don't know. I don't know that you'd know
Yeah.
whether they were any better or any worse. I will tell you, if it was the battery, you might have just saved yourself a service call charge plus a very expensive battery.
Right.
If you just had been asked that question. Like, we've
Yeah.
saved clients a ton of money by just asking those questions.
we have excellent dispatchers. I feel very confident in their ability to make sure we're doing the right thing. If our team has sent somebody to your home, you probably need somebody to go out there, I would
Yeah,
imagine.
and so I will say, I mean, like we're talking about things. Your air conditioner is broken. Check your battery and your thermostat if it's not working. I mean, maybe you know what it is, you have a hunch. If you don't, that's a good starting point. Check your breakers.
Okay.
Is your breaker on your furnace? Is your breaker on your air? If there
Turn
was,
it off and on again.
yeah, and if there was no storm, it's likely a mechanical issue. But if just think, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, there was an electrical storm last night. My breaker's off. It may be as simple as switching your breaker
Yeah.
to the off position, the on position, and save all that nonsense.
Right. So you talked a little bit about the pricing and all that. What's the most challenging thing when it comes to pricing for a repair from your perspective? Because I would imagine that would help give a homeowner some insight into kind of understanding their bill or their quote possibly.
I will say explaining the cost in a way that makes sense to a client without having a crazy conversation about the cost of running a service business. And so all of the training, all of the support, all of the overhead that it takes to have a vehicle that rolls, the price of fuel, the price of repairs on the vehicle, the meetings that you have to do to keep these technicians at their best, the follow-up you have to do behind the technicians to make sure that they're following procedures. So if you think about it, if you even had the best staff of technicians and they all knew how to fix stuff, if they had different processes that they utilized to get to an end, every client would receive a different experience, and then you wouldn't learn through experience as a group the little fine-tuning you have to do. Someone has to manage those things. And so at the end of the day, we'll change something like a capacitor, and I know what the math is,
Right.
and I sleep well at night with what we charge for that work because I know what it costs to deploy those resources. But it doesn't feel good to a client.
And
they can Google the thing, and it's like $15 or something.
Yeah,
it makes no economic sense, and they don't want to hear about what it takes to run a service business. It's boring. I mean,
Yeah.
the business. I love the business, but I'm saying, like, come on, dude. Like, you're telling me meetings, like you're making excuses. I mean,
Yeah.
marketing is a cost. Like, well, I don't. I want a company that doesn't do marketing. Well,
Then how are they?
well, how
are you going to find them?
Well, think about this. Well, okay, well, says the marketing guy, I'll give you something that's client facing. So if it's a small company, there are a ton of things we do because we have bandwidth that a small company cannot do.
Right.
Because they do not have critical mass. Quality control, training, formalization of things, checklists, keeping an eye on that stuff. These things all cost money, but they all have a benefit to the client.
Right.
And so my point is, you can't have a company with that kind of capability if they don't market their business. Another example, you know better than I do what it costs for a Google click.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's so much
Right?
money. It is getting higher and higher.
You click on one of those ads with Google, that service provider pays a fee, and it hurts.
Just to talk to you.
Just to talk to you. So who's the receiver of the benefit? I argue it's the business, but it's the client. Like the client has this resource. Like it isn't like Google doesn't have value.
Right.
They totally have value. I mean, if you think about being able to look through reviews, being able to pick clients, that entire journey is better now than it was 30 years ago, and it has value.
Yeah.
How is it capitalized? It's capitalized by a click. How does the client receive that cost? They receive it in the cost of the service provided because the service provider has to pass the cost on. So when you're doing that click, even though you're clicking it, you're paying for that. Like
Yeah.
be thoughtful about that. Also be happy you've got it. And then I also would offer, don't be upset about it. Like the service is amazing. The
Right.
way you can look at reviews, the way you can cipher through the contractors that you should speak to, you can glean so much information. It has value. But I will even say, you know this as well as I do, it hurts like when you see what it costs just to get the opportunity to interact with that prospect. It's scary a little bit.
Yeah, and you're always trying to work it. I just was reading this. It's a $200 billion a year industry search. And most of that goes
I'm
to
actually
Google.
a little bit surprised it's not a trillion, but anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
it's
trillion
coming,
is
right?
a lot of dollars.
Right. Okay.
That's so many dollars.
I don't even know.
So many
What's
billions.
33 or 40 trillion anymore? I don't even know.
We're doing too much head math. You're
Yeah,
much
yeah,
better
yeah.
at that than me.
Oh boy.
But yeah, it's great that you said all that because, especially that you tied it into a capacitor, because I've not seen a single repair more picked apart by customers and consumers
And
than
us.
capacitor replacements. Yeah.
We hate them.
Yeah, and
I mean-
I think
I mean, like,
it's a
it just-
huge point because it's not that big of a part, but
No.
you have to understand that there is a business behind it. There's a whole process behind it, and we've talked a lot about making fun videos explaining like the journey of this capacitor
I know, like
and
a
stuff.
little, like a bill. I remember
Yeah,
the
like-
commercial back in the day when I'm a bill, now I'm a
Yeah.
law. You know, like I like
On
do something
Capitol
like that
Hill.
with the capacitor, right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
But yeah, it's so much, and I would say it's likely the companies that do a better job explaining the price, making the customer feel like they got a value, because yeah, it is a hard pill to swallow if you do look up how much a component costs and a guy did it, because you could do simple math in your head and be like, well, how much did they pay that
what
guy
are
to
those
do
guys
that? That guy
making?
was
Like-
only here for this much time,
Yeah.
and then that cost that, but you didn't think, well, then you talked to somebody on the phone for 20 minutes about your problem first. How much did it cost to pay that person? The
Right.
click, yeah, all the things
I'll-
you went through.
I'll give you something completely related. So think about this. I believe we should charge what our services are worth. And that is an incentive for us to do a better job for our clients. It's a healthy culture, okay? But I also believe a client deserves to understand why they paid what they paid for something.
Agree.
Like things like this matter. But so at the end of the day, not everyone's going to watch this podcast who had a capacitor replaced or
Right.
have this knowledge. So I feel, and we talk to our technicians about this, and I'm going to say this again, I'll probably say it 5 times more in this, but our technicians deserve nice things too. Like they deserve to be able to make a good living
Agree.
doing what they're doing. They put a lot of effort, and it's hard work too, by the way.
Yeah.
Summers and winters are miserable.
Oh my
if you're in the
gosh,
air conditioning business.
they are
Right?
feeling the worst of it.
But for them to support that, what they want from the experience, I believe they have an obligation to be able to explain to a client why they're paying what
Yeah.
they pay. And so now think about, so who trains that? That's not just knowledge. Technicians, you know what they want to do? Fix furnaces, fix air conditioners, go to the next call.
Right.
Like they don't want to have to run the business.
Right.
And in a nutshell, each truck is like a little representation of the entire business. And
Yeah.
that knowledge they don't get that through osmosis.
Right.
You have to train to that.
You have to build a culture
And
that-
clients deserve it. I mean, I believe they deserve it. It's one of the hardest things that we deal with is the human relations side for technicians, between technicians and clients, of good communications.
Right.
Because they're so gifted at making repairs, all of them, like
100%.
100%. But, talking with clients, it's not 100% a lot of times.
Right,
Sometimes
yeah.
sometimes it's 80% or 50%.
Right.
And then you can, develop systems or training, and the 50% that were good, now they're amazing, and the other 50% of your tech population still struggles because the client is having an emotional reaction to
Right.
an unexpected expense.
Yeah.
It's a bummer for them. It's
And
kind
it's
of
a
what I went back
huge
to.
emotional
We don't
experience.
We're not like, oh man, I hope every repair is a capacitor repair. Like we're making there's less money in doing capacitor. If we had to drive people around town all day long and do capacitor repairs only, we'd have to raise our prices on that. In other words, like
Right.
there wouldn't be enough money in this business to do it. And yet I know the cost of a capacitor, and it feels like a lot of money to me.
Oh, sure.
And I'm involved in setting the prices, and it still feels like a lot of money to me. Like I understand the struggle.
Yeah.
I hope I'm making sense. And I understand the technicians, they're there, they're doing their job, they're going through their day, they're getting emotionally drug into the situation, and they don't know what to do with it. You got to train through it, but it's tough. It's
Yeah.
interesting too, and fun, and anyway.
As a homeowner, it's a scary experience. You're
Yeah.
trying to find the best value. You don't want the worst person, and I think you've hit on a point that is kind of my feeling as just a consumer, a purchaser, or whatever in general. I kind of want to spend just a bit more above than what is the average, because I feel like when somebody, I just had a conversation with this where they were describing like, oh, it was a restaurant. They're like, this restaurant's better than that version or that place, but their prices are too high. I go, well, you said it's better, right? And they go, yeah. I go, well, they probably
Yeah.
deserve to be paid because they're better than the other people, right? Well, yeah, but not that much. Well, how much then?
Yeah.
And so the thing that you just said, it just hits home, because I'm like, yeah, I want my technician to be paid a bit more than the other ones, because I know I'm going to get the better technician. I'm going to get the guy I can trust.
We're able to go out and get better technicians
Right.
too, so we can attract the best talent. So you know what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to go down the wormhole with you on trying to support our value against or make judgments on people of what they spend. We have zero issue with folks who want the cheapest service.
And that's a value.
If
Some
they
people
want,
need
if
that,
they
yeah.
want, Billy Bob, two guys in a van down by the river, HVAC to fix their stuff, or they've got an uncle who comes over and tweaks it and just keeps it working. I mean, we love those folks just as
Right.
much as we love the folks who want a different experience, our experience. So,
Yeah.
right. So, what I know is that the price of our services matches our value, and it's like in our DNA. That's our mission statement, is that what we charge should match value, and it should always be in equilibrium. Because let's say that I charge less than what it was worth. Now I don't have a viable business.
Right.
I can't stand behind and support that business, or I can't send that amazing tech. There's going to be a break point where I can't deliver the value.
Right.
I mean, you got to be thoughtful about it. It's hard. I'm telling you, it's hard, and especially in that space, because you can go on to Amazon and get a capacitor for $15. And if you've got a buddy who can fix an air conditioner, or you're mechanically inclined and you know what it is, you could do that yourself. Although you're going to be without air,
Yeah.
you're going to wait for the thing to come through Amazon. My guys are likely going to have it on the
Yeah.
truck. It's going to be a completely different experience, and maybe that's not what it was, or something else caused that, and you didn't fix it anyway. You just
Right.
made the air work for another 3 months. I'm going on and on and on, but where I'm going to go is, I'm not going to stand on a platform and say like we're better,
Right.
or try to convince people that the value of services received likely matches the price. What I'm going to tell you is we take that seriously, and you should be looking for contractors like that.
That take that
And
seriously,
It's
yeah.
just as good of a business model. It's not our business model to say, I could see a person who was one truck saying, well, John, here's my deal. I don't want to be like you guys.
Right.
I'm not looking to have a staff that's as my depth is as deep as yours. My clients love me because I'm a one guy deal. I don't have marketing.
Right.
I'm cheaper than you, and they can be.
Yeah.
They shouldn't even have to apologize for that. It's what the client experience wants is the one that they should go find. What I would say is they should know what they're looking for when they're in the marketplace. That's
Yeah.
what I'd offer. At least be thoughtful about what kind of contractor you're engaging.
Yeah, I mean, hey, that's how I ran my before I worked here. I ran my marketing business that way, where I ran very lean, and that's how I was able to get clients, and I served a purpose. So you make a valid point there that you're matching.
It's no less valuable.
You're
it's
matching
just different
contractor
value.
to person. Like,
Yeah.
what are the things that you value as important to you in this
Yeah.
experience there? So, let's say we've, been working with the system for a while. We've had it as long as we can, or maybe we purchased a new house and now it's time to put in a new system. So, or either way, that's the other experience that
Yeah.
you get into to meet a customer. These things, that is very daunting to me, because I understand very little about an air conditioner and about a furnace and about the whole system. It's, I think, the biggest scary thing about it when I was purchasing a home. The biggest, scariest thing about it when I was purchasing a home was, how much time do I have on this thing? I know that's going to be an expensive repair.
Well, it's
That's
kind of
gonna
like
be an
death.
investment.
You never know when it's coming,
Right.
which is a good thing. Except on an
Yeah.
air conditioner, you want to be able to plan for the expenses. You don't want to pull the trigger too soon.
Yeah.
But you're sitting there waiting on this like unexpected big expense. It's
So-
anxious.
And
for
you
sure.
led right into the question that I wanted to go is, so if I'm going to purchase a new unit, I mean, it seems weird that this is where people start, but it is frequently where people start with like, how am I going to afford this? Maybe they're not thinking of like what kind of system I want, but they might be starting with that question. How do people typically afford a new system?
Well, so we offer financing whenever we consult a client on a replacement on a system. But, they could just as easily, if they have equity in their home, talk to their bank, or I'm trying to think of the little credit. What
do they call that when you home equity loan?
Well, you would do home equity loan. I was thinking of credit bureau, but that's credit bureaus for your credit. I was thinking of the credit union.
Credit
right?
unions, credit unions, yeah.
Because you can get a better rate than what we can offer. So, in the same way that our services have a value, the folks who finance replacement air conditioning systems, they really don't have any equity to lever against the purchase other than the folks' credit. And the commitment that's made in the contract to pay. If you're borrowing money on a home equity line, that bank has security in the money they lend you, or that credit bureau, So they're going credit union. They're going to offer you a better rate than we can offer. But really, at the end of the day, that the spread in. We keep going on and on about value. The spread in the difference in those rates has value,
right?
Because you don't have to go through that process. Generally, the application to get credit is a 5-minute deal. You know right away whether you can do it. It's also smooth. It's seamless.
And frequently, they don't even need your credit anymore.
Yeah, you don't even know what happens. I mean, literally, you can buy the thing
on
a monthly payment. So you really shouldn't have anxiety about coming completely out of pocket on an air conditioning system. We have ways to do that. If you're planning ahead, I'd suggest save some money, or otherwise think about the financing, because it is a component of cost.
So as a new homeowner, you should think about, the long-term cost of that and setting aside, like, hey, in a few years I'm going to need to repair this, so I need to plan for that.
For sure.
I had a lot of friends who would put in a new system and they'd be like, they'd tell me, oh man, it was basically free because of all the rebates I got from the power company, and this company came in and they had some company roll in and really hot and like wheeling and dealing and finding a way to make it work.
Yeah.
What's that experience like? Is there any validity to that?
Wow. Okay. So, I've got some strong opinions on pretty much everything you've asked me so far.
That's why I got you answering questions.
But really, one that really gets my last nerve is contractors who are chasing utility credits to make a sale, to sell boxes. And so what happens in a lot of instances is, not all, and it's getting better, but to achieve a credit, you've got to hit a certain efficiency. But to achieve that efficiency, let's say you're going to overblow the evaporator coil on a system, and you end up in a home where you ended up getting a $600 credit, and you're staying there for 20 years, and the house is completely humid for 20 years because you were chasing a utility credit that was $600. Divide that out by 20 years. I'm not going to do that math right now, but
and that's because when you oversize the system, it's not pulling out the humidity.
It doesn't. It does not function as well. I would forego a credit and seek comfort. I can tell you that one of the values that we add is we think about both. And where it's not appropriate, we won't offer a credit.
Right.
And we're actually willing to walk away from the business to not put a system in someone's home that's going to leave a home humid or oversized for 20 years, because it matters to us what people think about our work. And
so those credits don't necessarily apply to every home in terms of what they need for a system, you're saying.
I say don't chase a credit for the comfort of your home. If you're buying an air conditioning system, buy it based on comfort first, and you want to think about operating costs for sure. So I started there. Generally, if there are credits, they're looking at that too, but they're putting the efficiency ahead of the comfort, and that's not what air conditioners do. Air conditioner isn't a thing that just burns my money, and then there's this other thing it does. The thing that it does is make your life amazing.
Right. Well, you have this saying we don't sell boxes.
No, it's sell air. The product is air. The client doesn't. I imagine a couple, I'll say, and they get their wine and they pour a little glass of wine. They go down by their furnace and they set up a little table and they do a romantic dinner by the furnace. Come on. Nobody cares. I want it to look good, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, they do that somewhere else.
It's so sad because if you think, maybe we've lost something, because we used to heat our houses with fires.
And actually, if you think about it, if we could get people to do that,
right?
You know what I'm saying? Maybe do a little like a little dinner deal where they could sit down by the furnace or outside by the air conditioner and admire the air conditioner with their favorite
build a furnace
cab.
that's pretty and gives an ambiance to the room too.
Literally. That's not why people are buying furnaces. That's how they buy them.
Yeah.
They look like we have been conditioned to teach clients how furnaces and air conditioners work. Now we're stopping that, but that is how our industry behaves.
Right, where
I mean,
you feel like you have to explain all this, and that stuff
you're
goes
gonna
over the
buy
head so
you're gonna
much.
buy hopefully very few air conditioning systems in your lifetime, and we want everyone to have the experience of buying one and experience how great it is when you improve the quality of the air in your home. But that not everybody ends up buying one. Some people will sell their house before they ever have to do that. So maybe one or two in your lifetime. How could you learn everything you need to know about how a furnace works if in the course of your home ownership life, which let's call that 50 or 60 years for someone who lives, average life expectancy, you do two systems, the technology is changing like crazy. That's not how you make a decision to buy an air conditioning system. Like, how does the furnace work? People should be asking questions about what's it going to feel like in my home.
What's it going to do for me?
Yeah, what's it going to feel like? What's my experience going to be like?
What's it going to cost me?
Hey, I've heard these things can
run,
control humidity, to a minute detail. Like, what's that like? And I'm telling you, when you're controlling temperature and humidity, or you're not hearing a system, or you don't even know when it's off or on, or the temperature always feels even, or throughout the house it feels even. These all sound intangible. Once you've experienced it, you can't ever go back.
Yeah,
like
and
that's what people say more than anything. Like, I can't even believe I did the thing.
it's like when you finally get the seats in an airplane that have a little bit more legroom. I can't fly Southwest anymore because they didn't. Well, now actually they added them. So
I do like Southwest.
I do like Southwest. I love Southwest, but I'm 6'2". Once I experienced extra legroom.
I mean, I don't even know. You're probably getting blood clots, getting all stuck up in there. I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I know. I'm not.
Who knows? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, if somebody's, they're looking at this, they're thinking about, the comfort of my home. What kinds of things are they replacing when they replace a system? If you're purchasing a new home or building a new home, obviously you're putting in the ducting and you're putting in the furnace and the blower and the condenser outside. But if somebody is living in a new home, maybe, or it's an older home, they're replacing the system. What kinds of things is like a full replacement typically doing? Like, what are we getting?
So I've got a 12-year-old air conditioning system in my home. I'm replacing it. That's what you're asking.
Yeah.
What's generally involved? So in the basement, let's say it's a gas furnace. It could be electric, but you're going to have, if it's a gas furnace, you're going to have the furnace itself and then the air conditioning coil that's on top of it. Mm-hmm. It could be, I'll stick with that. So outside, you're going to either have a heat pump or a condensing unit. So there's really three major components: the furnace, the air conditioning coil on the inside, and then the air conditioner itself outside. Mm-hmm. And then when you're having that experience, or you're talking about the comfort of your home, there would be things you could enhance the comfort. So you might add a humidifier. By the way, a humidifier, that is the biggest bang for the buck. That is the thing that when people get a humidifier,
Really?
It's like, how did I live without that? And it's very economical to buy. I will offer, though, for folks, water is going through them, depending on how hard your water is.
Okay.
Like, there is maintenance involved in a humidifier. You will experience issues with a humidifier more so than you do your furnace or air conditioner.
So it's a great purchase, but it's a more frequent maintenance item.
I say issues. It's really maintenance and doing proper maintenance on them.
Okay.
It's worth the investment, but there's an ongoing cost. And again, once you've had one, I mean, my wife, if our humidifier is not working, I've literally had it. I've been down in the basement on a Saturday. There's a little tube that comes off the humidifier. Water's running out of it. It's working. Monday, we're upstairs, and she says, the humidifier's not working. I'm like, well, babe, I was just down there on Saturday. I know it's working. She says, well, I'm telling you, it's dry in here. Will you go take a look? And I go downstairs, and there's no water.
Wow.
Because it's clogged or
That's
something.
That's how big of a difference it makes. Is that
totally temperature's
somebody
the same
who doesn't work?
immediately.
Your wife doesn't work.
I
here.
was just there. It was working.
She just lives with it.
I was in the basement and I saw it. I mean, this is a real life experience I had. I wanted to go prove her wrong. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, you don't know.
Didn't happen.
You lost. Did you pay for that later? Like, you
no,
lost that
I
argument?
was. Come on.
You were friendly.
No, I'm an old pro at this.
Okay. You've been married a long time.
I went downstairs and I checked it, so just so we're clear. And she was right, and of course I celebrated that she was right.
Hey, good for her. I mean,
That's right. Good
I
for
would
me
say
too.
you're raising a great point too. That like she's just an average homeowner living in a home, and so it's maintained a lot. I have really hard water in my house. That's an issue.
Oh well, I mean, I'm not a plumber. And so, it affects
with the humidifier.
Oh, for sure. On the humidifier, it does, because there's a pad that water runs through, and that'll calcify. And also, there's a little valve that has a very small opening because you don't want to waste water. And so it meters the water. And so because the opening is small, yeah, anything that calcifies there will stop the water flow.
Okay. Well, you mentioned
I want to go back. I want to go back to other things. So we're doing the humidifier.
All right.
So you probably would want to think about some filtration.
Okay.
So, and which is a big deal. And
Yeah.
I don't want to go into a bunch of detail, but there are thoughtful ways that we deploy filtration now. And so, back in the day, before there were high efficiency motors, it could be costly even if you had an amazing filter. The motor couldn't push the air through the filter.
Yeah, I've
it wasn't
heard that a
strong
lot.
enough to do it, or it just was expensive to run. So the newer motors, if we match a filtration system, you're going to want some sort of a fan strategy. You're going to run that fan more likely. Different speeds, having variable speed. Like these capacities are built into controls. Again, I don't want to go too far down that road, but like bang for the buck and things you do when you do a system, you're going to look at your furnace, your coil, your outside unit, be it heat pump or air conditioner, and then a humidifier. I highly recommend. Just be aware that there's a cost
Right.
to maintain it, and then filtration. Those are the big things. Like there's others, the controls, zoning. We could go on and on and on. But
Yeah.
if you're a consumer looking, I would want those 4 things addressed, those 5 things addressed.
Well, it's really cool that you say that too, because I think about if I'm looking at a system and it's a fairly basic system that was installed, let's say 15 years ago, and I'm replacing it now, it is a good time to think about modernizing it, because
sure.
we learned so much about what we want in our homes during the pandemic. People started adding things like UV lights and extra filtration and caring about the comfort because they're spending more time in there. And with more people working from home, you're spending more time in the home now. That makes a ton of sense. But you mentioned a word during that about the humidity. That it was something I actually wanted to talk about during the repairs, but I decided to mention it here, and it was maintenance.
Yeah.
Maintenance is an important part of a new system, and that's different than what it used to be. Can
On
you
old
explain that?
systems too.
Well, what is the big deal? Like, if I put a new system in, I need to get a maintenance program on it, correct?
Absolutely.
And why is that?
Well, I mean, let's start with the most basic thing is that your warranty is based on that the equipment's properly maintained.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to say like, we cut people slack on that, but we do not go out, this company, Vogel, as a company or a culture, and try to use that as an excuse not to honor a warranty.
Okay.
And so, I don't like to use any worry tactics or threats with clients to engage in a service or activity.
Sure.
But all things being equal, the manufacturer didn't put that in on accident. Like it's in writing. If
Right.
the system is not maintained, the warranty is void. Well, they're not just doing that because that's just a thing they think that should be done. They're doing that because they know systems aren't maintained, they break more.
Yeah,
And
like you had a car without an oil change.
Yeah, they break. That's what happens. So if it's not maintained, the compressor works harder, the fans work harder, you're burning more energy, you're not getting the comfort you deserve, and air conditioners are not maintenance free. I mean,
Right.
I wouldn't know how else to, and furnaces, same way. I wouldn't know how else to say it. Like it's a mechanical device that requires an expert to look at
And
it.
nobody told me that when I bought my house. Did you? Like, that was the most surprising thing to me. I was living in my house, I think, for 2 years before I
Yeah.
learned I needed to clean that condenser.
Yeah, you got to clean the condenser.
And I was like, there should be some instructions. But yeah, it's a big thing that requires maintenance.
For
and,
sure.
And yeah, you want it maintained. And maintenance packages are fairly reasonably priced. Like, it's a very affordable thing to avoid a very costly thing.
It's actually probably the highest by margin for sure. It's our lowest margin service that we provide, and we watch that very diligently to make sure that we match that cost because we want the client relationship. And so there is something in it for us. There's something in it for our clients because if it's got our air conditioner in the home, then it lasts the lifetime that we, told them they could expect from it. It's the right thing to do. But my point is, it's for sure the highest value you're going to get, and it saves repairs. It extends the life of your system. Everything's an upside.
Yeah,
on it.
you're not thinking about, like, I think about if you have a really nice filtration system, they're frequently changing those filters for you too. Like, it's just peace of mind, taking the worry, the not thinking about it. It's like going to the doctor for preventative care rather than waiting till something's wrong. It's such an important part to live a healthy life with a doctor. It's an important thing to have a healthy system.
And if you don't mind me jumping in on that, so I'd even offer, so if you're on a regular maintenance program, we call it a rewards membership at our company, think about things that were bothering you about the system. Like if you notice you're hearing a noise, or you've got a space that isn't comfortable, or you saw a YouTube video and you're like, oh my gosh, like what does that thing do? Take notes. Have your notes when your technician comes to your home. Ask those questions. Like you've got an expert in the home. It doesn't cost any more to pick their brain and say, well, what's with this? Or I saw this thing. What do you think about that? You know,
That's a really good
bring
idea.
up things you've noticed about a sound. Another thing that I think is one of the life experience that is a guaranteed thing. I'll say I'm going to use I'm going to call this a metaphor, not a real thing. a little old lady who's in her home. She lives alone.
Okay.
She doesn't know anything about how a furnace works.
Why would she?
Client or technician goes out and she says it's making a noise. Technician looks through the system. There's no noise. There's a noise, Danny.
Okay.
I promise you. Like, she knows what's going on with that system. Technician wrong 100% of the time. Something's up with that air conditioner. I guarantee, like, it's a no-fail.
Yeah.
Guaranteed you're going back to that house. We literally train our technicians, like, do not dismiss what people are sharing with you about their system. Like, they're there all day long. Even if it seems far-fetched, I promise you there's something to it.
Yeah.
Like we live and die by that. So we literally coach our teams on that. And by the way, I stand by that 100% hit rate. If a person knows what's going on with their system and they hear something odd, something's off.
Right. And man, just like keeping a little note, like if you have that maintenance package, you have somebody coming out, a couple times a year, just jotting down things because you might not think about it before, when they're there.
No.
You're like, oh yeah.
I wish I'd said that, or just get
This winter, it was really cold in that room. Only in January. Like the rest of the year was
that
fine.
one cold spell we had.
Yeah.
And then you forget about it.
Yeah. Or the when the sun was low enough to just hit a window and it just baked a room. Like there's so many things that could go on that just keeping a little note, and I always use the doctor analogy because that's what my doctor tells me to do. He's like, dude, just write stuff down so that you don't come in and ask me like, what did I want to ask you about?
Hey, it's good to take notes. The doctor.
Yeah,
says.
No, that's fantastic.
I'd suggest that as well.
So, when should you, if you're going through this this process, when would a homeowner maybe raise questions to the price of the service that's being provided? Is there any like red flags that you could give a customer to kind of say like, hey, maybe this is the time to ask a second opinion? Are there any things that you've seen that you could maybe give them to peace of mind?
Every time they have a question.
Okay.
So our technicians in the home, they get a price. We're going to tell them what the price is before the repair. Ask the technician. Like I'd say, ask them. Like I literally, there's no foul in saying, well, gee willikers, like, I saw that capacitor. Like I thought my buddy told me it might be capacitor. I was on the internet. It's $15. Yeah. Like I feel it's an obligation for us as a service provider to be able to explain what's going on with it. I think it's a fair question to ask. So my first answer would be every time that you have a price concern, ask the contractor. Ask us. Like just ask. Like, can you explain that to me?
Yeah.
Ask for it to be explained. And I can tell you we have explanations. And so I can't promise that the technician you're gonna get is gonna be like Edgar Allan Poe and be able to make it sound like like water dripping off of a duck's back.
Sure.
It may still hurt when you get the answer because it's an unexpected expense, but I feel we have an obligation to explain it. Yeah. So now you're asking another question: is it's someone else, and I'm not sure about the repair. Should I get a second opinion? I'd say I'll offer the same advice. Ask them. So now when you ask them, if you get an answer that doesn't measure up,
right?
I mean, people are smart. It's the same thing I said about, the quote-unquote little old lady. Like, she knows what's going on with that
So if
furnace.
I ask you as a technician, go, hey, should I get a second opinion on this? What do you think?
Oh, that's not how you ask that question. I think I'd ask, can you explain? Can you dig a little further? Like you're saying, my system's out. Are you sure that's what it is? Or otherwise, this seems
So
pricey.
ask some probing questions to get them talking.
Yeah, even probing questions. I'm not going to say you're not going to learn how to service a furnace by asking a technician questions or by researching it on the internet. If you think it's something you do want to research, though, in our business, you can pump the brakes right there and say, you know what, I'm not sure. Can I reach back out and have you guys come back out? Like, that is an experience that we support.
Right.
Now, it's not, generally there would be a cost to come back out. And so, but that's because there's a benefit. into being able to pump the brakes. So I'd offer anytime you have anxiety in the transaction or something seems off, pump the brakes.
Right.
So, I mean, as a consumer in anything, but especially in our business, and just because I will also offer, just because you feel the cost isn't matching doesn't mean you're right.
Right.
I mean, again, I would say overall, it's never happened that I can remember where someone said, "Oh my gosh, my furnace broke. I'm so happy that happened today." Like, it was just, I mean, we have people say the service was awesome, but no one says, "I'm so happy I spent that $600 today. I wanted to go out to dinner with my family, but instead I fixed my furnace today." Like, no one ever celebrates
Like,
that.
I'm a little happy when my TV breaks because it's new TV time.
TVs are getting cheaper.
That's more reasonably affordable. But
Yeah.
with my air conditioner, even if I was wanting a new one, I'm still kind of like,
I mean, I'm half teasing, but I'm just saying there's always some,
Yeah.
you can't, it's emotional. Even when mine breaks,
right.
it's a bummer. And so you don't let your emotions cloud your judgment. But I'd say whenever it doesn't feel right, you ask the questions. If it completely doesn't feel right, ask for a second opinion.
I mean, the biggest thing I've taken from all of this conversation with you right now is, like, as a consumer, it always comes back to this fear of the unknown, fear of price, fear of I don't understand this complex thing. But the way that you describe it to me is it's incredibly easy just to slow down the process, ask some questions, ask for transparency. And if you're not getting that, well, then maybe that's your key that you might be in the wrong area.
That's exactly what I'd offer.
Yeah. So it seems like there is, there's a bitter pill to swallow when you have to replace a thing as costly as an entire system or repair a system. But this isn't as scary of a journey as it has to be. As long as you pick a trustworthy contractor that has some good reviews, you should be able to have that conversation.
I'd even offer you ask your technician a question about the repair, the cost of repair. Ask if it's not sitting well, but especially like if you're dealing with a company like ours, they're reputable. Escalate. Ask if you can speak to a manager about it. Like, would you mind? That technician's not going to care.
Yeah.
Would you mind? Like, they don't. Would you mind? Like, I'm just like, well, I mean, be a decent human being.
I don't.
I mean, I can't.
I want to speak to a manager.
Well, I mean, people do.
They do that.
And it's and we could go on down that rabbit hole. Like, that is just as miserable for a technician as it is for the person who's doling out that pain, right? It's horrible. Like, it ruins their day.
It does.
It's the worst part of the job. We wish it didn't happen. Sometimes it does. But I guess what I'm offering is, if you ask it in a human way, like, Bob, like, I'm just this is unexpected. Mm-hmm. It's more than what I expected. Would you mind if I would speak to a manager? And if you could please, like, can we do that now? Like, don't leave.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what I want to do. I'd just like to speak to a manager. I would ask.
Yeah, and our managers are super easy to talk to and great people. And usually they'll always try to find a way to help a customer or to find.
I've had it where they've advised them to pump the brakes. I mean, I would take a pause. Or, again, I don't want to get into too much of a promotional spiel, but we have a program where if you make the repair, we'll give you money back on the repair if you replace the system within a certain period of time. Maybe you don't want to rush the replacement decision. I would suggest a rush decision to change an air conditioning system in your home is a bad decision almost no matter what. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you know what you want and you know us and you ask your consultant and you tell them what you want, they're going to steer you right. And so you'll end up in the right place.
Sure.
But rushing the decision is just not ideal.
Yeah,
so,
and what you're describing, where if you make a repair, and you change your mind, we might apply that. That's I will say as a consumer, that's not always common in every industry, but it's a great thing, and I think it's a fantastic way to recognize that, like, I can really trust this person because not only are they working with me to get my business, they're working with me to keep my business and to keep me happy.
Well, take what I just said. So I'm advising people not to rush the decision. Mm-hmm. Well, don't I need to be thoughtful about how we deploy our services to clients so that they don't have to rush the decision? Mm-hmm. It's not in our best interest. Well, I believe anything that's client-facing that's best for a client is in our best interest. But if we were just out trying to harvest money and harvest the most money you can, you would, I don't want to say you would want this. Again, this goes against every grain of my sensibility and my ethical approach to business. But people in our industry are taught to use the urgency of these situations as a lever to get a transaction. Like, that is a thing. That is why you're asking questions about when is it appropriate for people to pump the brakes, because, like, this goes on in the world we live in.
It certainly does.
Like, be aware of it. And so I mean, I don't know how far down that rabbit hole I went, but that just doesn't match our culture. Like, we don't want to rush people. We actually want the folks who are thoughtful about what they put in their home, because we know at the end, the part that they're left with is the air, and it's going to be amazing,
Yep.
and they're going to tell their friends. And at the end, it's self-serving to some extent. Plus, it's just the right thing to do. But
I will say nobody's ever sad about the product they receive from us. I don't ever read a review or an email from a customer or something where they're like, man,
well,
my air's not what I want.
I'm going to jump in. I will tell you this. I don't have one person who's ever bought the nice stuff that said, I wish I bought the cheap stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the one you never hear. I would go back to, even you said the TV analogy.
Yeah.
When you walk into Best Buy and you're looking at the TVs lined up next to each other and you see that one on the end that you want and it's $100 and you're going to have that, or $200, you're going to have that TV for 10 years, buy the good one. Because you're going to sit in your house with your favorite beverage, and every time you look at it, feel validated that you made the right decision. And that's the same way it goes when people buy the good stuff. No one ever says, oh my gosh, I wish I had that, because systems are expensive. I wish I had that $2,000 back. Like, everyone's like, $2,000 is going to last 20 years, 15 to 20 years. It's $100 a year, and
you
the
break
air
that down
feels,
into the payment,
and the air feels like this. I didn't even know it could be like this. That's the general experience. That you
Yeah,
get,
but when you go with the cheap and stuff, on the other hand, like, I have bought the
sometimes you
lower
don't
end,
know.
and you're like,
yeah, but sometimes
I
you
wish
don't
I got
know.
the better thing.
Well, I would say, as a consumer myself, it's only been a one-way street. I've often bought the cheaper thing thinking I'm going to save $1 and always wished I'd bought up. I've never bought the good thing and wished I bought something cheaper. It never goes that way.
That's why I love your advice about, man, just bump the brakes if you can. If it's not like an emergency scenario where your pipes are going to freeze or you're going to
that's
sweat
a tough
to death.
And we can help on that too. That's a tough one. I will say summertime, it's a big buy. I mean, I don't want to say go to a hotel, but if you can open your windows and get through it, pump the brakes.
Yeah, because
go
just
to a
give yourself
hotel,
a little time,
pump the brakes, take a breath.
Borrow a window unit from a friend or something.
We actually offer window units to folks. We'll put it in so you can have a room in your house that's cool while you make up your mind.
Yeah, because even still, like, sometimes you might be waiting on the installation, especially if it's in peak summer.
I mean, COVID and supply chain issues. That's a whole different.
Yeah.
That's when we got really good at that.
We're like, okay, we got to figure out how to help these people while we're waiting to help them.
Right.
Because
help us, help you.
That, to your point about earlier, I can't imagine living here without air conditioning right now. It is so humid and hot in St. Louis in the summer. Sure. I cannot believe we survived this long without it. It's remarkable. Yeah. And that anybody settled here without air conditioning. I can see it now. It's a great place. I love being here. Yeah. But man, if there was no air conditioning, I'd have stopped here and be like, let's just keep going and see what else there is.
That's why everybody ends up in like Wyoming and California,
Well,
except for the mountains.
That's okay. I can
that.
handle the dry heat.
That's
that humidity.
Right.
All right.
Funny.
Well, man, thank you, John, for taking the minute and sitting on the other end and letting me pick your brain and,
that was fun.
And play devil's advocate sometimes, too. I know I can be a little adversarial, but I think you answered some great questions and hopefully brought some amazing clarity to homeowners or potential new homeowners, because it is frightening, but I think to your points that you made, I don't think it needs to be as frightening as we think it is.
I wish that these things that we're doing, I mean, we're taking 40 years of experience that I've had and really, I want to say compartmentalizing is the word, like consolidating it into a podcast that I don't know what we ran. We probably ran an hour or so now. It's not exciting stuff. Like, I wish we could make it more exciting for folks. I wish that people would engage this podcast and steal these little nuggets of knowledge, because I think it can make a big difference in their life. And that's why we're doing it. We've talked about that, but I don't know. We can keep working on what we're working on and make it as fun as we can, and hopefully people are getting something from it.
Yeah.
And I think it's fun, and I love sharing all these experiences that I've had, and I've seen a lot of them, and hopefully we're doing a good job for our clients. We're sure trying. So
I think so.
Yeah, appreciate it.
What was your sign off? I forgot.
I always say, see you around town.
All right, see you around town.